Hey, happy Saturday, everybody in the Empowered Living community. This is Paul Martinelli, and I have been excited for this Saturday to introduce you to, for some of you, an older friend, and for many of you, maybe a new friend, my friend Mitch Tublin. Mitch, thanks so much for jumping in here today.
Thank you, Paul. It's always great to see you and spend time with you.
You know, one of the things we want to do in the Empowered Living community is obviously empower people with knowledge, with insight, with understanding. And I think today's topic is something so critically important because with the right knowledge and the right information on this topic, we can change somebody's life. We can change our own life. And of course, as many of you know, we're talking about the topic of health and specifically stroke. And this is something that's really near and dear to me, something important to me. My grandmother, who was the love of my life, as you know, Mitch, had a stroke, and it ended up, taking her life, and it was so sudden, seemingly sudden, but hindsight, it actually played itself out over time. We just didn't know what to look for, and we weren't looking for it. And maybe had we been aware with some of the things that you're going to share, maybe we'd have had a different outcome altogether. So I know you've also, and for everybody who's on this, watching this live or on the recording, Mitch has put together an opportunity for all of us to help him in really his passion now and purpose in this new season of his life, to help other people by compiling the stories of people who have walked this kind of stroke journey. I think the best thing for us to do right from the beginning, Mitch, is to hear your story. Will you share your story? Because I kind of had a front row seat. I was I watched right after your stroke. I've watched your recovery. And I've watched how you and your family have managed it. And I've heard you tell this story, and it's so compelling.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And it's always great to have the opportunity to share with this community specifically, but also to have the opportunity to help others, to help them. You've said it, we've talked about it. It's like one of life's wake-up calls. It's that tap on the shoulder, the knock on the head. And who knew on Christmas Day, December 25th of 2019, that when I started that day with my morning workout, which is what I typically do at that time, I was going to a health club, and they were open just for a few hours that morning. So I wanted to get in and get an early morning workout. And when I came home, as far as I knew, everything was fine. We were getting ready as a family. One of my sons had taken the train from New York City, where he lived at the time, and he was going to go with my wife and I and go to a family gathering for a early dinner, late lunch, gathering for Christmas Day with the family. And I was getting ready to drive. Actually, it was going to be an hour and 15-minute drive. They noticed, unbeknownst to me, certain things. And as I was getting the driver's seat ready, my son came out and said, "Are you sure you're okay to drive?" I was like, "Well, what do you mean? I'm fine." He said, "Well, you seem slow. You seem like something doesn't seem right." And I said, I seem fine." He said, "Why don't you let me drive? Let me drive." And I didn't argue. I mean, I just said, "Oh, okay, I don't know." I woke up. I was in the back seat. I woke up when we were at the location where we were going. For over an hour, I went to sleep in the back of the car. And remember, I had worked out. I came home. I had a little bit of breakfast. I never sleep during the day. I mean, this is like, taking me back to being a toddler. I mean, who does that? I've heard napping is a good thing, but it's not one of my habits.
Yeah.
As soon as we went into the house, we're saying hello to people. My wife and my son disappeared. I didn't realize they were going upstairs to get online and speak to a contact that my wife has in the medical field who runs an emergency room back up in Connecticut. We were now in the Rockaways in New York. And I was walking around kind of saying hello to people. I found out later that these conversations, people were wondering what was up with me.
They thought maybe it hit the punch too early, huh?
Correct. And a few minutes must have gone by, and my wife said, come upstairs. And I actually climbed the stairs, no problem. And got in front of the screen, and we did a FaceTime with the doc that runs this emergency room. And he basically said in no uncertain terms with very colorful language, get to a ER like ASAP. Almost too much time has gone by. Get moving. And they had a decision to make. It was, go somewhere local in Rockaway or go back up to Connecticut, an hour and a half to this hospital. But we knew people. In other words, she knew people. She's in the medical field. So that was a decision. So we went back up there. And in the emergency room, when I checked in, if you know anything about blood pressure, what's considered normal is 120 over 80. And my top number was 220. And they kept checking it, thinking their equipment, or maybe they were doing it wrong, because to them, I should have been just out on the table. I shouldn't be walking around and going to the restroom and doing different things that I was doing and drinking from a water bottle and, whatever. So they said, we're going to check you in, but, there's definitely something going on. Had so many hours not gone by, because there is a blood clot buster, they call it. It's a medical term that's better than that. And within under 4 hours, I believe, they can give you that if you come in at that time. I was just kind of past that time limit, so they weren't going to go that route. So they checked me in. I was spending a Christmas night in the hospital. At around 4:30 in the morning or so, and if you've ever been in the hospital, is when what I call them the blood vampires. But, the nurses, they're doing their job. And thank goodness we have them, as we've seen this last year. She came in to do what she does. And I said, something's not right. My right side, my leg, my right arm, something's not right. Something's doesn't feel good. Next thing I knew, there's 10, 12 people in the room. They're checking me out. They're looking at things. And they're taking me on the rolling bed for various tests. And this is now a good 5 hours. I'm back in the room. Maybe it's 11 o'clock, 11:30 in the morning. I'm super thirsty. So on the table, when I had checked in, I had my water bottle from the car with me, and I was just super, super thirsty. So I reached over for a water bottle. It wasn't this water bottle, but I reached over for a water bottle. And I'm lefty, natural thing, left hand. I literally could not find the cap. Like, I was moving my hand. I'm looking at my hand. I could see the water bottle. I could see my hand, but I couldn't navigate my hand to the top of the water bottle. I'm sitting there saying, and now isn't that interesting? So I switched the water bottle over. I could hold the water bottle. I took the cap off with my left hand. It's not a problem. Just like now, have a little drink. And I'm looking at the cap and the bottle. I said, well, surely I could put it back on. This is working out. So I actually was able to put the cap in the right hand, take the water bottle back. I could not find the top. I couldn't find the top of the water bottle. I'm looking at my hand. I see the cap. I see the water bottle. I can't put it back on. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So at that moment,
Yeah.
I thought of Malcolm Gladwell. He wrote the book, I think it was Outliers. And in that book, he said, spend 10,000 hours to be an expert.
Yeah.
Now I'm laying there, they were sitting there in this bed trying to drink a water bottle, hours before. I don't even know what's going on. That's what I'm thinking. Saying, all right, whatever they're going to do to me today, when they're done and the door closes to the room, I know what I'm doing, because by tomorrow morning, I'm going to do that. I'm going to take that cap off. I'm going to get a drink. I'm going to put that cap back on. And the day was a busy day. I mean, a lot of tests were done. Clearly, I had what's called a mini stroke the night before, but I had in the morning a more serious stroke. Left side of the brain. So my right side was where the issues were. My wife came to see me that evening and, various discussions. But the point is, what I was doing that evening and through the night until I went to sleep was I was doing the work in my head and in my hand to somehow get that cap off that bottle and back on. So when I woke up the next morning, the first thing I did was the same thing I did when I came back the day before. I grabbed the water bottle. I looked at it. I had my right hand. I went to the top. It took me a while, but I was able to get that cap to come off. It just took a while. All right, take that drink. And then I just thought, now put the cap back on.
Wow.
And I didn't get it exactly. I kind of went like this, and then I kind of put it on, and I just smiled. I said, I have to take the first step. Nobody gets to the top of the stairs by getting to the top of the stairs. I'm going to take the first step, and I might miss, but then I'll take the next step. I'll just get, because I knew from work that I've done with you, from reading, from studying, that there was a journey ahead, and I had to take that journey. There's a lot more to this story.
Yeah.
I'll share it at other times, but I mean,
you went into this, I've known you for probably a decade. And, I would see you 2 or 3 times a year at live events. Most of those events I was putting on, you were coming as a participant or a teacher or a helper. And so I'm always in the lobby at 5 o'clock in the morning getting the event ready. And I would always see Mitch Tublin coming in dripping wet from a run or a workout or something. Like you don't, I don't know you to drink. I don't know you to smoke. I mean, so you're a relatively healthy guy. No signs that this was happening beforehand. Were you on blood pressure medicine or anything?
No medication. No
medication.
None at all. And interesting. I mean, I could actually share like a little bit of information if you think it might be interesting or helpful. I did a little bit of research thinking, it might be something that's helpful, because I investigate things, but I never knew anything about this until I was, knee deep, waist deep, chin deep in what we're speaking about.
Yeah.
But, there's just a couple of stats from some basic searches is 1 in 4 people over 25 will be hit by a stroke. And then another one is just amazing is every year in the US, almost 800,000 people have a stroke.
Wow.
And 610,000 are new strokes. The one it's the scariest. I mean, I have 4 kids. There's the youth are the future. And the fastest growing percentage of people are people under age 45 that are having strokes. And it's mostly because of obesity and their diet. So these are pretty scary numbers when you start to think about it. And it's something that can be helped if people eat right, behave a certain way, stress is involved as well. And I have to say this, there's people mean well. I've led a fairly healthy diet I would say over the last 5 or 8 years. I work out every single day doing something. There's people that came up to me after, as we were accepting visitors, and they've said things like, well, that really worked out well for you. Are you happy? Are you happy you didn't go out for beers every Friday? Or are you happy you didn't have the extra hot dog, or, whatever? And I know they mean well. But the actual fact is, I know for me, I'm only speaking for me, I'm not giving anything medical out. If I didn't do that, if I didn't work out, if I didn't eat a healthy diet,
You'd have been
I
dead.
wouldn't have survived what happened. That is what built the foundation for survival and the recovery that continues. I mean, you know, I'm 98%, 99%, but it continues. It's a journey.
Yeah.
And the care only increases, because I know for a fact, for me, that's what gave me the ability to be where I am, to be here with you having this conversation. And that's why I feel like it's so important to have an impact and to help other people.
You know, I think it's important for everybody to know, you know, Mitch isn't selling anything here. But you put together a project that, when you shared your vision of the project with me, because I've been touched by this, right? I've now, by two people I love, with my grandmother and you. I said, you know what, I'll get behind this and I want to help this. And you're creating kind of like a manual for people to read the stories of survivors and caretakers, to kind of expand awareness. Share kind of what your vision is for the project, and then we'll talk about how people can help.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I appreciate you saying that, because this isn't about a money-making proposition. This is truly to have an impact. I feel that it's a win. If there's one person that reads this and was involved in this, who then does not have a stroke or catches it early, then that's a win. So two people is double a win. So I'm looking to just be someone that's having an impact and helping others. The story of ultimately the book, and the story is my story and my wife's story, because you as a person are going through this stroke event, and then there's your partner, and the same time you're going through it, they're going through something, and the vision of each is going to be a very impactful and different.
Yeah.
But then I thought, and actually you and I spoke as well a few times, that's our story, but what about all these other people? So by incorporating and having people in the study being interviewed, volunteering, first of all, I think they truly want to be heard. I think they want to share their story, and no one really asks them. No one really has given them the opportunity to tell their story. And this is the stroke survivor. Now you have the spouse or the partner, the caregiver, this person, no one's asking them their story either.
Yeah.
I want to hear their stories. I want to share their stories. I think that it needs to be part of it, because from my perspective, there's nothing like this out there, where people can have a guide of, if they're going through a stroke in that process, what is the experience? Not from a medical or any diagnosis, but our experience, can that help you in what you're going through? And then ultimately to have a community, so an online community, where the people that have been part of this study and are interviewed, they'll actually be able to interact with each other, and then others that become part of the community that are either just interested in knowing about strokes because they're worried they may have one, people that are going through it and their family and friends, and then people like them that maybe weren't part of the study, but now they feel alone. This is a place where they can talk with each other. Are you going through this? What did you do? Not from a medical situation. Nobody's asking anyone to disclose anything. There's HIPAA rules. We're not going there. Personal experience.
Yeah.
And let everyone have the ability as a community to share their stories with each other. So the idea is looking for 54 people, and they can bring their partner, spouse, whoever, to be part of these interviews, whether they're one-on-one or in a group.
Well, I know from talking to you, because I got texted early on, you know, I think the next day. and spoke to you. And I know that you and Patty Ann, there's probably 10 or 20 decisions that you have to make in those first 48 hours. Like you said, that, which hospital do I go to? That's a decision, right? Which treatment that's a decision, right? And so I think by having this guide of other people who've already made those decisions and can share the outcomes of those decisions from just their perspective, they're not advocating one way or the other. This is the decision we made. These were the considerations in the decision. This was the outcome for us. To do again, we would do the same or something different. And so what Mitch is asking all of us to do in this community is, if we know of someone who has had a stroke, or someone who's a caregiver and has a story and would like to share that story, what Mitch is going to do is he's got a link that will be posted now in the comments, where that person, all they have to do is they'll answer a real short questionnaire. Again, as Mitch said, we're not looking to get somebody's personal private medical information, just the big rocks of the story. And then Mitch is going to do an interview very much like this, to capture those stories and to create kind of a living testament to those stories, and then also a really powerful reference tool for people. Because I think you're right, Mitch. I think this resource isn't just for people who've had a stroke. It's for the 3 out of the 4 that didn't. Right. That are fearful of it, that are unsure and want to know what were those signs? What are things that we can do in our lives? Because there will be stories in there like yours where you were doing all the right things that probably saved your life. I believe it saved your life. And then there will probably be stories of people who say, look, I was smoking, or I was drinking, I was overeating. And now, because of this, the wake-up call, as you said, now my whole life has shifted, and they made different changes. So you said 54 people. Why 54 people? Is there a magic number on 54, or is that what just feels right to you? Was there a?
Yeah, it just felt like a good number, and it's a plus or minus, but it sounded like a nice number, and I feel like it's one of these things where you never want to say like 100, and you never want to say a couple of dozen. So just it's something to make it interesting, because life is so interesting. And go ahead, please.
No, please go. No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to share, because you've been had such an impact. I don't want to minimize an important part of what we're speaking about, because we've talked about the working out, we've talked about the healthy eating, and I wanted to just bring up, especially because we're speaking in the empowerment living community, and I think people in our community, your community that you've put together. I say our community.
Our community.
This is how we get, right? Is to understand that the key is that the mind and the brain. And what helped me through this is that initial years that I've spent. So I understood I needed to have the desire, I needed to have the faith, I needed to have planning, but not wishy-washy planning, but organized planning, persistence, so sticking with the planning, and then the power of positive people around me. You got it. And the thing is this, it's not fun to have the people come in your house and they're teaching you how to speak again, and to how to walk again, and how to use a fork and knife and do all these things, but you have to do it. And I welcomed it, because we had, like you say, choices. We had a choice in the hospital where there were people that almost wanted to force me for 3 months to go in some facility. And I knew what was going to be in that facility. And I wanted to be around people that were doing things that I wanted to do again, not people that couldn't even do what I was doing then, because how would I advance? And I'm not knocking anyone. I'm not knocking the people that are there, because for them that was good, but I needed to do more. And the power of being around positive people, the exponential aspects of the mind, meaning it can work for you even when you're sleeping, which is the subconscious mind and the brain, and what it can do when you've put all these pieces together. And that's from that book that you raised, which is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which has nothing to do with money unless you want it to, but have the patience and have the hope that this will all pay off. Meaning, you can't just wish that cap on the water bottle. You got to work for it to get on there, and then it's on there, and that's a win. The next morning, that's a win, and then each day, just look for that win. So I just want to make sure to share that, because the mind has got to be working. It's not just the working out, it's not just the food. There's a lot of other pieces to the puzzle, and that's part of this. It's part of this having an impact, because I believe that people can get tuned into this and understand what this is. I mean, you share with me, Paul, the number one issue about recognizing a stroke is denial.
Yep.
Think back to the story with my son asking me to not drive.
Yeah.
He and my wife, in a sense, were denying that I was having a stroke. They would have took me to the ER, but they knew enough something was going wrong. And I must have been in serious denial, because I just climbed in the back seat, no fight, and I fell asleep for about 15 minutes.
Yeah. You know, I want to just piggyback on what you said, because there's a time in my life where, you know, this book was placed in my hand, and, you know, it was new when I got it. And I wasn't going to teach from it, because I thought, who would ever listen to me? I could never change somebody's life. And there's many of you right now who are, you know, are growing speakers and trainers and coaches that might be sitting on the sideline, and you haven't stepped out yet and really you haven't declared yourself because you're waiting for the time to be right. You never know who you're speaking life into, and the world needs your voice. Who would have known that my voice, you know, a high school dropout kid from Pittsburgh who was a janitor, would speak into, you know, someone like Mitch's life, and what I spoke into him, and then from his own study, and then sharing it with other people, so he fortified it within himself. You know, because you want to keep something, give it away. Served you at a critical time in your life, and so I just want to encourage all of you. You know, you're ready. Get out there and start speaking. So, Mitch, we're putting the link in below. How long will the interview be? So if let's say I were to refer, you know, my uncle or my aunt or a friend or a neighbor, how long would they be interviewed by you? Is this something that they do in 15, 20 minutes, or is this an hour?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, a fair question for people to know. So my intent is to do these by Zoom, because it's great for us to have these kind of conversations, and in the environment we're in today, it's not fair to anyone's health to do anything in person, especially if we're speaking about this community, which is probably toward the at-risk side of life from the health organizations. My intent is to have groups of 5 with a spouse or their significant other or a caregiver. So that's 10 people at once, but the 5 is the number from the 54, right? The spouse and the caregiver, they're welcome because they're part of the story. In those groups, it may be closer to 90 minutes, because I want everybody to have the opportunity. Because of certain situations, and that could be time difference, people from another country, other situations, I'm going to be flexible. I may have to interview them one-on-one. So those could be a little bit shorter, possibly half hour, 45 minutes, because it's one-on-one, but I'm going to give flexibility because I want to hear their stories. I want to give them the opportunity to speak. This isn't anything about a tight timeline and me trying to get so many done a day. I want to fit people in and allow them the opportunity to speak. So I'm thinking 30 to 45 minutes if I do a one-on-one, but they'll also be invited to have their spouse, partner, caregiver with them. So it'd be both speaking, and then I had the opportunity to share, because as I said before, there's two stories going on, and in a larger family, there's more, but two significant stories. And that's the person actually having the incident and the caregiver. So that's my thought.
Super. Well, hey, everybody.
If I could share just a couple things real quick, I hopefully have just a few minutes.
Please.
Yeah, but what I wanted to share is that it's two things. One is I really ask people who aren't people that have had a stroke, people that have been through a stroke. It's an event in their life, but it doesn't define them. And they are not a victim. I ask the people that have had a stroke or having a stroke, you're not a victim. You're survivors. And similar to people that overcome a disease like cancer, which is a horrible disease, and I applaud the people that go through it. My mom fought that disease for 16 years. For some reason, there's an unconscious bias about people that have had a stroke. And when those who don't know see them, they're looking for the impairment. They're looking for, well, where's their cheek drooping, or their eye, or where's there a limp, or are they a little bit? Give them the respect and think of them as survivors. Work with them as survivors. Be positive around them, because anyone that's gone through a stroke as a survivor, they need positive people around them to keep the doubts and the fears out. They are true survivors, and they're working every day. And it's a challenge. You want to be surrounded by people that are going to support you in what you do. And if I could, I just want to share for the community at large key things to think about. There's a thing called FAST. It's face, arm, speech, time, call 911. So it's called FAST. And the other one is Be Fast, which includes balance, eyes, face, arm, speech, test. Those two things can save somebody's life. So it's just something that recognize quickly. These things come on suddenly. And if it's the face, the arm, speech, time, get somebody to the emergency room. It doesn't matter how old they are, but they're having a stroke. And this is like 98, 99% accurate. And do you want to risk for that 1% of denial that you're wrong?
Yeah. Right. And like you shared, I mean, denial is the first sign of a stroke or a heart attack, where somebody says, no, maybe it's upset stomach, or maybe it's, gas, and here it is, it's a heart attack, or maybe, maybe I'm just tired, or it's stress, or it's just a headache, and it's a stroke. So Mitch, thank you so much. So for all of you, here's what we're asking you to do. There's a link below. If you know of a friend, a family member who is a survivor of a stroke, who you believe would love to tell their story and love to be part of the community to help others through sharing their story, share this link with them. Pass this link over to them. And Mitch is going to go ahead and put this together, and it'll be beautiful. I think, it's probably going to, from the time Mitch does these interviews to the time he gets it all edited and compiled, it's probably going to be 6 to 9 months. But, I think it's going to be well worth the wait. And I can't wait till one day we're on one of these calls and we're holding up a copy of the book and people can begin to share the book. So thank you so much, Mitch. And we are so glad that you are healthy and part of our community. God bless.
Thank you, Paul.
You're well. Bye-bye.